Welcome to Private Members Business, where the opposition steps up with fresh ideas and bold motions.
Donald Trump stood yesterday and declared that he wanted to essentially ethnically cleanse Palestinian land, forcefully transfer tens of thousands of innocent Palestinians from their homeland and replace them with others and essentially create a new society. Many people were shocked, except that is essentially the story of Palestine for the past century. The Palestinian story is a story of displacement and confiscation, of international law rendered meaningless, of suffering and misery. And it has continued because the world has never said stop. Introducing the Occupied Territories Bill to the Dáil in 2019, Fianna Fáil TD Niall Collins, now a junior minister in this government, righteously challenged anyone who detracted. He asked those who have tried to dissuade us from supporting this bill, I say, if this is not the time to act, when will that time come? When will that time come indeed? What has changed since? Well, Fianna Fáil entered government and essentially adopted the language and critique of the bill that had been articulated for Fine Gael when they opposed the original iteration of the Occupied Territories Bill. And what has happened since has been an escalation of the misery and suffering. 2022 went on to be the deadliest year on record for children in the West Bank. 34 of them were killed. 2023 surpassed that record. Long before the horrendous actions of October the 7th, Israel had killed 39 Palestinian children by mid-September. And since then, of course, we've borne witness to a genocide for which the latest toll of those murdered stands at 61,800, including at least 12,000 women, almost 18,000 children, 808 under the age of 12 months. But since then, also, the International Court of Justice has ruled on the legal consequences and implications of Israel's occupation. The ICJ has ruled that states have a duty to abstain from entering into economic or trade dealings with Israel concerning the occupied Palestinian territory or parts thereof, which may entrench its unlawful presence in the territory. It also states that states must take steps to prevent trade or investment relations that assist in the maintenance of the illegal situation created by Israel in the occupied Palestinian territory. And then the ICJ further found that all states are under an obligation not to render aid or assistance in maintaining the situation created by Israel's illegal presence in the occupied Palestinian territory. That is as clear-cut as international law gets, Taoiseach. So Ireland should not be engaged in trade, either through goods or services that support Israel's illegal occupation. Simple as. To do otherwise is to be complicit in Israel's breaches of international law, to economically support their occupation, their apartheid and, unfortunately, their genocide. As has been said, the leaders of both Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael have committed to supporting the Occupied Territories Bill in advance of the recent general election. The Taoiseach, leader of Fianna Fáil, Micheál Martin, he told an Oireachtas Foreign Affairs Committee that I was at that the ICJ ruling was, and I quote, an authoritative statement of applicable international law which is binding on all states and international organisations. The Taoiseach here tonight, leader of Fine Gael, he told the nation during a general election television debate that he would support the Occupied Territories Bill. Not a version of it, not a watered-down version, certainly not. So what has changed since that? Any commitments to uphold international law seem to be just rhetorical devices of use while seeking a mandate from the people to be discarded when they actually really count, because there's been 6 years of moments where this could have been progressed. Today, as Mary Lou MacDonald has just said, there's not a single person in this chamber who wouldn't denounce the apartheid-era regime of South Africa. I'm too young to recall most of it, but I expect that there isn't a single person among the great and good of today who wouldn't claim to have opposed apartheid in South Africa and to have actually advocated against it. But we know that that wasn't truly the case. There were those who equivocated, who frustrated and delayed meaningful action against the apartheid regime. So tonight, I'm appealing to deputies of every party and none across the breadth of this House. If not, for the beleaguered and displaced, the maimed and the orphaned and the ethnically cleansed Palestinian people, if not for the tens of thousands murdered who will never know a ceasefire, let alone enjoy lasting peace, then for yourselves and for your own legacy. Because decades on from now, every member of this Parliament will claim to have done everything that we could. Well, tonight we can prove it. We can reject the government amendment, which is a tool, make no mistake about it, it's a tool to delay and to reduce the provisions of the Occupied Territories Bill. I hope the Taoiseach will explain why his amendment, like government statements of the last couple of weeks, continually remove references to services and limits potential trade restrictions to goods, because the reality is that no explanation can excuse a position that is clearly contrary to the letter and the spirit of the international law and the ICJ determinations. So our strength, and I'll conclude on this, Cahirlock, as a neutral state with an independent foreign policy must be our consistency in upholding the principles of international law and the UN Charter. That consistency is required now more than ever, regardless of who is in the White House or where other EU states. We must speak up, we must act, we must sanction Israel, we must pass this motion.
Like, share, and subscribe, and let us know your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.